Hi, and welcome to A Part a Day. So what I'm going to do today is we have again a part shown in isometric view, but for this part I also want to specify the orientation of the part and locate the part at a specific point in space. So I have indicated over here the front plane, so that means that this surface here is going to be the front plane of the part, and I'm going to use this blue dot to indicate the location of the origin. So it is arbitrary, but I can specify for whatever reason that I want, say, the origin to be at this location. I mean, it could be anywhere else, but for the purposes of this video, we will say that that's where the part origin is going to be. And that part origin is then going to allow us to take a look at the mass properties and locate the center of mass of the part with respect to a point of our choosing, as opposed to which is essentially an arbitrary location, depending again on how we create our first sketch. But here we're, or someone else rather, is specifying where the part origin is supposed to be. Okay, before we actually start making this drawing, I want to point out something. Now, when we're looking at these and we pull them out of graphics textbooks, we might automatically think that they're an isometric view. Now, just took me a little trip down the rabbit hole to figure out exactly what's going on here. So this is the drawing that we're going to, the model that we're going to end up with, and this is the drawing that we're looking at. This drawing is actually not in isometric view. If it was, these angles, these are my three primary axes. This is like up and down, and then the front face and the right face. You see these angles are at 105, 120, and 135. If this was a isometric view, all of these angles would be 120 degrees, and you would get what's called true dimensions when you measured along these axes. Come back to that at a later time. However, when you select the trimetric view in Solidworks, you'll see that the angles are actually rotated. So it's 135, 20, 105, but the 135 starts down here. So it's 135, 120, 105. So not only are they reversed, but they're also rotated. So they're kind of flipped and rotated. And it took me a long time to figure out what was going on. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out as a little bit of extra. All right, so let's go ahead and make this part. As we said, this has to be the origin and this has to be the front plane. So I'm going to go ahead and make a sketch on the top plane. And if we open up and show the primary, all the planes, we'd say that we're sketching on the top plane. Here's the origin, and if we rotate, here's the front plane. So in doing that, our curve is going to go in this direction. We're going to curve off to the left. So let me turn off the primary planes here. And when you're looking at this drawing, I'm going to post it so it looks a little bit confusing and you have to figure a couple things out. So I'm going to show you the way I made it, and then I encourage you to make it again yourself so you can actually see what the drawings are. All right, so this blue point is where we're going to start. And what I'm going to do is make this L shape without all the cuts and fillets in it. All right, I'm going to start creating this by making a series of rectangles, and I'm going to make them all as construction lines. So when you put the rectangle in over here in the property manager, there's this option for selecting construction. So that's going to be one rectangle that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to select a second rectangle, also make it for construction, and then finally I'm going to make a third rectangle and also select it for construction. So what I've essentially done, as you can see, I've created a large rectangle, but I want to now put these dimensions in to give me the overall shape of the geometry. So you can see that there's a 2-inch dimension here and a 2-inch dimension here, so let's put those in. So I'm going to go from this line to this line, make that 2 inches, and I'll go from this line to this line and also make that 2 inches. So now, if you see that this 2-inch dimension over here And this line goes up to this center of the radius that's going to go across here. So if this distance here is 2 inches, then this distance is 2 inches, so the radius is 2 inches, and then when you rotate through the 90 degrees, that's going to say that this leg over here is also 2 inches. So we'll go ahead and we can put that dimension in. Oh, it'd be helpful if I actually select the Smart Dimension tool. All right, so that's going to give us some of our basic dimensions now. And the last thing we need to lock everything down is this last dimension here, which is going to be 1. And once I've done that, again, you should see down here that okay, and once I've done that, you can see that the sketch is fully defined. So I'm going to go in and start putting in some lines now. Now that I kind of have this general shape, so I'll go here and I'll just select here and here. I'm going to come all the way. I'm actually just going to go to there, and I'll do the same thing down here. I'll select here, 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 and here. And I'm going to close the surface by putting in a 3-point arc, which will now have its center point at this location. So we'll come here and pull down, and we're going to pull here as well. Actually, I just realized I have my relations turned off, and sometimes the part that I was just making, I turned it off so that I could get a better feel for what was going on, but you have to be careful that you turn it back on. So let me go ahead and do that. It's up here under the Hide Show Items, and you want to turn your relations back on. The reason you do is sometimes you might have some sort of geometry that is not, you can't figure out why it's not fully constrained, and you'll find out that you're missing a relationship somewhere. All right, so I have all of the basic structure that I want now. So I'm going to go here and go Features, Extruded Boss, and now, missing one line. So this would have created a thin feature. I don't want that. So let me get out of that, and I'll go back into Sketch. Even in this 3D view, I can just close off my line. All right, and I didn't have Shaded Sketch Contours turned on. So we turn that on now, and we actually do so that we have a fully closed contour. So I'm going to go to Features, Extruded Boss. Now this is where it's important for us to verify where our origin is. So this is where the origin of the sketch is, and if this is the origin here, I want to extrude downward a distance of 0.5. So I'm going to flip my direction, make this distance not 50 but 0.5. All right, so that gives me my basic shape, and if I hover over the origin now, my origin is in the correct place, and if I verify where the front plane is, I'm also have the orientation in this direction straight. Okay, so let's finish it up. So I have this distance here is 2, down to the slot is 1, and if you look here where it says 5 by 50, that means this here, here, this radius, and these two are all 0.5. So if I come down 1 to the center of this slot, and you'll see that these 0.5s are also centered on that slot. So the entire face here is going to be 1.5. So I'm going to go Sketch onto this face. I'll create my rectangle from this corner, and I'm just going to drop it down here somewhere. And what I want to do is drag this point over till it's coincident with the other point. So again, I don't need to throw a 2-inch dimension here because I'm using pre-built geometry. So the only one I need to do is put in this as 1.5. And I'll go ahead and extrude this in that direction as going to be a 0.5 extrusion. So I'll go Features, Extruded Boss. In this case, I'll flip the direction. The 0.5 thickness is already pre-selected, and I'll go ahead and put that in. Now I'll go ahead and do the same thing over here, and you can see that this dimension is showing me the height, and it's again going to be 1.5 because we're 1 here and 0.5 down. So I can create this in a slightly different manner. It is your classic 6 of one, half dozen of the other, so I'll select on this face. In this case, I'll choose from this corner down here. My thickness is going to be 0.5. And in this case, I'm just going to extrude up a distance of 1. So I'll go Features, Extruded Boss, and go up a distance of 1. And we now need to give these fillets their chance to be put in. So we're looking at the 5 by 50. So I'll go to my fillet, or 5 by 0.5. I'll set my distance here to be 0.5 down here, and I'll just go ahead and select that edge and this edge. This edge. Now notice how I'm zooming in and rotating at the same time so I can get the visibility of these edges. And you got to make sure you select an edge and not a face. Okay, so I have all of it. My preview is turned on. Sometimes in Solidworks you might have a no preview or a partial preview set. I find that unless you're making a very, very complicated part, you would always want to have full preview on. So we'll just say OK. And we just have a circle and 2 slots to put in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll make a sketch on this face. Now, what you'll notice here is that this slot, the implication is that it's this endpoint, or this center point of the slot, is also centered at where the fillet is. So we're going to put a straight slot in, but instead of just quickly drawing it, I'm going to hover over this edge until that center point shows up. Now it's pickable. And I'll do the same thing over here. So select that center point, and then just create my the thickness of the slot, and it's down here is the dimension. So 2 by diameter 0.4 slots. So you have to be careful because by default the slot is being dimensioned as a radius, so this will be 0.2. I'll hit escape to get out of the dimensioning tool, and then look that it looks correct, and I will go to my features, do an extruded cut, and in this case we'll go through all. And we're going to do the exact same thing onto this surface. So create a sketch, go to my slot tool, hover over this circle or filleted edge, do the same thing here, pull out and drop, go to my smart dimension, and put the radius in as 0.2. And again, we'll do a extruded cut and go through all. And the last thing is to put this circle in, and I think this dimension is either drawn incorrectly or it's distorted somewhat, because if this distance is 1, you can see that the distance coming out here really cannot be 1. So this line, this extension line, is implied that it's going to the back. However, in that case it would be in line with this one. So you can see there's a distortion. So I think that's a drawing mistake because I've tried it, and if I put that dimension out to being 1, it doesn't quite look right. I'm going to put this in trimetric view, which is, I think that's what I had chosen. Let me just double check over here. So you click here and do your pull down, and you have isometric, dimetric, and trimetric. So we're in the trimetric view, but it doesn't exactly look like this, again, because the angles are slightly rotated. You could try to figure it out, and I have not looked up the actual rotation angles. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some later point in time. So, but anyway, I think you would agree that this circle is not at a 1 point distance, it's at a 0.5 distance. So we'll go sketch. I'll draw my circle and we'll put in the 2 dimensions. In this case, this is a dimension of 1 and the dimension here to here. Right? So the question is it 0.5 or is it 1? Well, we can try it both ways. And we'll make that 0.4 and we'll do a features extruded cut and we will go blind. We'll switch that to through all. So that's where the hole is located at a 0.5 dimension. Now, you actually don't need to go back into the sketch to modify the dimension. I can just select the cut extrude and it will bring up the dimensions that are based on it. I can just double click in here and change that dimension to 1. And sometimes it'll update and other times it won't. If it doesn't update automatically, you have this rebuild option here, this little stop sign, and you would see next to cut extrude a little stop sign that's telling you that it wants you to manually do the rebuild. So let me go ahead and again put this in trimetric view. And you can see what I saw. I think this was out way too far, so I made this back to being a 0.5. And you'll see now it didn't update, and that's what I was just talking about. Here's the little stop sign. So you can come back here and click, or you can choose to do Control B, and that will update the part. All right, so this is the front plane. This is where the part origin is. So if I go ahead and do my evaluate now and select mass properties, not only do I have the volume and the surface area to check if my part's correct, but if someone gave me where the center of mass is located, I can also make the center of mass because they're going to be with respect to this origin. Let's just quickly look at that. This is the XYZ triad over here. So if this is 0, positive X is in this direction. So they're telling us that the center of mass is -2 in this direction. Well, that makes sense. Positive Y would be upwards. So Y is -0.25. So we can see that this is a little bit bigger than that one. And my Z direction, again, positive is in this direction. So negative is in this direction. So all 3 of my coordinates of my center of mass are negative. If we want to actually visualize where the center of mass is, the way you do that is you go under Features, under Reference Geometry, you turn on the center of mass, and it becomes a feature. But if you click anywhere in the window now, it'll disappear. That's why you would have to come under your Hide Show Items and turn on the visibility of the center of mass. So that's on now. And the other thing, if we wanted to show where our origin is for this part, we can also turn that on by selecting View Origins. So now we have the 2 things that we're kind of interested here. Well, this is the front plane, this is the part origin, and if we were interested, we could look at the center of mass. One last thing, just to show you the different views that we can have. If we come up here under the view orientations, you have different options here for how you would want to view your window. So if I do a 4 view, it will automatically give you 4 primary views here. So the top, the front, the left, and the trimetric view. And in this case, it's good because you can kind of take a look at where the center of mass is with all the different views. And then finally, to get back to it, you can just click in any of these windows. You'll see as you click into these particular windows, they become active. And then you can rotate or move the parts. And the thing is that they're linked. You'll see that the trimetric view isn't linked. And you can right-click and unlink the views. So now the views are not linked, so I can zoom out on this one and I can rotate this view. And then I could right click here again, and can I forget. I don't think you can go back and relink the views once you've broken the links. But I can go back into any of these, go under my view orientation, and set the number of views back to 1. All right, so that's this part. a lot of extra things in here, and I hope you learned something. So thank you for watching Part a Day.